Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, Lucy and I were just having a chat in the green room, and we just wanted to also acknowledge the sad passing of Liam Payne this morning, who, you know, this week particularly, and our jobs are all about caring for artists and their fans, so very tragic story to start the day today. But we will try and pick things up.
Started off on a more upbeat note.
More upbeat note. So thank you all for being here. When Claire asked me to host this session with Lucy, it seemed like a very easy yes. Lucy and I have known each other for a long time. We've become good friends and confidants in the last few years. But
she's actually my life coach. She really is.
Tour manager and life coach.
I mean, all of it.
Yeah. But for you guys in the audience, who is Lucy Dickins? When she was honoured with the prestigious MITS Award in London last year, her client Adele called her loyal, ballsy, and unwavering. Little Sim said she was genuine and refreshing. And Mahalia called her one of a kind. Like those artists and many others in the industry, I've also always admired Lucy. I've looked up to her for her ability to think outside the box, for her don't give a fuck attitude. I thought I'd do the first curse so you don't have to feel bad when you pepper the rest of the session. Her sense of humour, her honesty, her authenticity, her style, her relationships with her artists and with her peers. As an agent, Lucy has always cared about the fans because she has always been a fan, first and foremost, and now she has many of her own. But why is that? Someone doesn't just accidentally become accomplished, adored, and respected for no reason. It was only in the process of doing this research today and speaking to some of her closest team members and looking at her family history and career milestones that I started to truly understand where all those qualities came from and how this force of nature came to be. So today, in a window that I've realised is much too short to fully understand Lucy, I hope that I'll help you get to know her a little bit better and that you'll walk away with some insights about the industry from one of the industry's best. So,
wow.
To get us started, that was the only bit you didn't know about.
I mean, that was unbelievable and it made me cry. No one's ever been so nice about me.
That can't possibly be true. We're going to start with family, the Dickens dynasty. I think we had a chat, and I'm going to try and breeze through this for some context for everyone, because we could easily go down a rabbit hole for half the session, and there's lots more to talk about. So your grandfather on your dad's side was Percy Dickens.
He was. He
was a musician who played saxophone and piano, and he worked at what was known as Tin Pan Alley in London.
Denmark Street.
Denmark Street. Was it called Tin Pan Alley?
I think so.
Nicknamed Tin Pan Alley, where many of the publishers were set up in the 1950s. He started the UK charts by collecting sheet music sales. He helped start the NME with Maurice Kin, and then he started one of the first UK music awards based on the NME polls. Your dad, who was one of my favourite people in the business, is Barry Dickens. He was one of the founders of the UK booking agency ITB in the late 70s, where you would later work, and he represents artists still, such as Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, and worked with the likes of The Who, The Doors, and Jimi Hendrix.
I've got a great story as well. You just made me think of it. Can I just tell you this quickly?
Please.
Sorry, I'm just butting in because I talk a lot. I've never been quiet for quite so long. So
I know, I was like, I've got to get everything
I reckon
in
that's the longest window I've not opened my mouth for. Right, it's a really quick story. It's really hard and I can't actually see faces. These lights, they have to be that bright.
We can't tell if we sold out our show or not.
We definitely did, and I'm actually quite fucking disgusted at the turnout. It's a little bit busy. There's a few too many patches in here. Must be the dynamic pricing that's going on. Jim Morrison actually bought us a dog. That was my story. He bought an English sheepdog for... When my brother was a kid, Jim Morrison gave my dad an English sheepdog called Ollie, and it was absolutely fucking nuts. And it knocked him like that to get rid of it. But that was my story. Sorry, go back to what you were saying.
Very good.
I'll have little random stories throughout the whole day.
Please. All right, we're almost there. Your uncle Rob Dickens worked at Warner Music Publishing.
He did.
Climbed the ranks very quickly, was MD within a few years and international vice president a few years later. He worked with and helped build the careers of Prince, Madonna, Cher, Rod Stewart, and...
He did, I believe.
What's that?
He was the person behind I Believe on Cher.
What about the other artists that he was very
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of them, but it's still I Believe. I mean, what a tune.
What about Enya?
Huh?
Enya.
Oh, Enya. They're actually, if anyone who really wants to go into the weeds of it, if you actually listen to Sail Away, it does say with Rob Dickens at the wheel. I got teased for that for years at school.
Some homework
every day. With Rob Dickens at the wheel. That's what I used to get. So it was a curse and a blessing being a Dickens, let me tell you.
It's a good claim to fame. It's a big song. And then, of course, there's your brother and your colleague, Jonathan Dickens.
And my mentor.
Your mentor, very nice.
My mentor.
Who runs September Management and represents Little Sims, Rex Orange County, King Cruel, and, of course, Adele. So, quite the family tree. What is Christmas like in the Dickens household?
Pretty loud and opinionated and a lot of music industry chat. And all of us over talking each other, thinking we know what's right compared to everyone else, really. My mum
Who's the loudest?
Me or Jonathan, I'd say.
Mum still gets a word in, though?
Oh, she's just given up. She just gets, and she gets bored of it. She's like, all I have to do is listen to the fucking music industry. That's what she says.
Wow, it's a lot
but
of
she's the grassroots of it all. If it weren't for my mum, I wouldn't be as opinionated as what I was, and Jonathan probably wouldn't have been as successful because she was the rock of our family.
Unsung hero.
Unsung hero all day long, my mum. She was amazing. She was. I spoke to her last night. She is amazing. Sorry, Mum.
Jill?
Written her off already.
So you guys are clearly, you know, there's this phrase of Nepo babies. This is clearly not the case. You are all cut from the same cloth. What is it that you think is in the Dickens DNA that made you all so successful in this business?
I would say that one of the things that we've probably all got in common is that we all sort of think outside the box and push boundaries. So like whether it was my dad bringing over American talent internationally to start touring, that was something outside the box. I suppose to my uncle bringing back careers of like Rod Stewart or Cher or Enya, which he was just saying he passionately believed in and did it. It wasn't the norm. I guess Jonathan breaking out. Jonathan had it hard because he was kind of like he was almost looked at like he was a racehorse, like it was a really good pedigree. So like he had Percy, Barry, Rob. So Jonathan was the next boy, and he had to really.
Do you think he felt that pressure?
It was horrendous for him, but he took a lot of knockbacks and then broke out on his own and did his own thing, and then obviously done what he's done for Adele, which is unbelievably incredible. He's super smart, and then I guess with me, the pressure wasn't on me as much because I was the girl in the family, right? And unfortunately, that's male. You know, I'm not getting into the whole male-female thing because I can't be bothered. And also, I love men and I love women, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to get into that whole talk. But what I would say was the pressure in those days wasn't on the girl to be the one to come through on the family name. And so
just
I
came in and surprised them.
Huh?
Came in and surprised them.
Yeah, I mean, I was always headstrong and heartstrong. I was never going to change. So I think, I think all of us just were very artist-driven. It was about building careers for artists, and it was never short. None of us are short-term thinking. I guess that's what's in our DNA. It's all like nothing's in the short term. It's always like, how do you build a brand of an artist, and how do you have years and years of this artist? So I guess that's something that, as well as being outside the box, it was just career-driven.
Do you remember seeing your grandfather or your dad and your uncle spending time with artists, talking to them? Did you learn anything from?
Yeah, well, I mean, we grew up around it. I mean, it sounds really weird now when I look back at it, but for me as a kid, I was always around artists. Like, you know, we would have people ring in our house, and I've talked about this before, but like Diana Ross used to ring up the house, and I just didn't think Michael McDonald would be around our house. Like, we used to have like the greats of, you know, I'd have dinner with Neil Young, still do. Like, it was like really, but it wasn't anything, my dad was really humble. It wasn't like it was seen as anything different. It was just the norm, kind of like what my kids are now seeing, I guess, with me. Like,
I still think there's probably agents out there who don't have artists around to their house for dinner. That's still something special about how they related to their artists. Like, there's a friendship there, which you obviously have with your clients as well. It's very unique to you.
Yeah, no, I'm close with all of my artists, but also that's part of my thing is, like, if I don't know what makes the artist tick, how do I do the best job for them? So I kind of like those personal relationships. I like to know what they like, what they don't like, because that makes my life a lot easier. When things can come in, I can go, that's not even going to be of interest. So I like to have those relationships. It's as much about me learning about them as them learning about me and trusting me to be the person to build their team.
And obviously these people are all very headstrong characters. You and I have spoken about this. I feel like growing up effectively in my career under Michael Chugg, who was someone who was happy to be argued with, was happy to be told no, wanted my opinion. When I got to a point of my career where I was really dealing with some really difficult people, I had that confidence and security of being able to say no or have a voice. Do you think growing up around these guys that you're in one of the most cutthroat markets in the toughest business, and I can't imagine you won't take on anyone who comes at you?
I think I was always, definitely would have made a difference because I was around lots of sort of strong men around it, which was a great thing for me. I mean, I can remember when I was really young and I was working for my dad at the time, and a call came in to me, and this guy was so rude. And I remember sort of answering the phone, and he was really quite abusive on the phone. And I just said, I didn't know because I was like sat outside my dad's office. And I turned around to this guy and I said, you know what, mate, I don't get paid enough for you to talk to me like that. So when you want to speak to me nicely, ring back. And I put the phone down, and my dad was like, that was the point I knew you were going to be a good agent. He was like, because he knew I wouldn't take shit.
Yep.
So, yeah, so I think it definitely, and also I think, you know, when you grow up working, you have the whole nepo thing. I think for me, my dad was harder on me than he was on anyone else to prove a point.
And you say Jonathan is harder than you than on his other agents as well?
Yeah, he's like, well, Jonathan's, no, I don't think it's necessarily harder on me and I've raised him. He's just in the weeds and in the details, so you have to always be one step ahead of Jonathan, otherwise he's going to have you. It doesn't matter who you are. I'd probably get it a bit more because I'm blood related, so I guess it's like I'd probably get it more. But I certainly, with my dad, he was constantly proving a point. It would be lots of things of like, if I used to go to him and go, I've just done this, he'd be go, yeah, that's all right, but why didn't you do that? It was never good enough, but he did it because he was challenging me and pushing me, and I don't regret it for a minute. I actually think it was the best learning I could have ever wished for. Yeah.
So you have all of that influence behind you. You're obviously set up with a great foundation for an amazing career. Can you tell us about the first band you signed?
Hot Chip. Yeah. Hot Chip.
How was that signing meeting?
I love those boys. I mean, God, I was trying to work it out because I was with, I still represent Hot Chip and I'm still really close to them, but I was talking to Alexa's Space the other day. I think it's like 23 years now. So how did that come about? Stephen Bass from Moshi Moshi at the time had this band that he wanted me to go and check out. And I was listening to it and I was like, this is really fucking interesting. I'm actually like, this is really cool. It's kind of cult-like, I really like it. So I went to go and see them playing a show supporting, I think they were supporting someone like Athlete. It was so long ago. And so I went to go and see the show and I was like, this is really cool, I love it, I was really into it. So then I was like, right, I'm going to go and have a meeting with the band. And the initial first meeting was just Joe and Alexis, and it was in East London in some cafe. And at this time, I was really, really young, and I didn't really represent any artists of my own at all. I was just working on stuff learning through my dad. So I was like, I need to break out of doing stuff with my dad and do something on my own. So I really, really sort of studied and thought out the box about ways in which I could be the person that I should be the agent for them. And I went there with all this paperwork and all this stuff of notes of like thinking I was going to follow it, which is usual in you'll see, like I always have pages of notes and it just comes out. I don't really refer to the notes. So I was like chatting away to the two of them, had a really good meeting with them and came out of it, and then I had to go meet the other members of Hot Chip, and it was in a pub, and honestly, they're so intelligent. It felt like I was on University Challenge, because I was sat there and they were saying things that I didn't even know what it meant. I was like, can you just talk in layman's terms? But anyway, I met the four of them, had a really good meeting with them. And then I remember going home, and that night Alexis calling me and he said, we've chosen, we want you to be our agent. And I remember saying to him, thank you so much for believing in me. I'm never going to let you down. Because they were the first band to give me the chance of proving myself. And he was like, well, no, we're really excited to have you on our team. And then we went from playing to 80 people to 200, from 200 to 5, and I think they You know, they successfully play to at least 15,000 people every year in London now, easily. So their career's just gone from strength to strength to strength, and it's been an amazing journey, actually, of really talented musicians who are just beautiful people.
Yeah. And was it at one of their gigs that you met one of your other clients?
Oh, yeah. So then Hot Chip were playing King's College in London, and at the time there was an artist called Jack Pignati that was really, really hot, who I'd just taken on. And he's actually staying at my house in LA at the moment. He's still a very, very dear friend of mine and super talented. And Jack was the kid that everyone was trying to sign at the time. And he called me up and said, I really want to come see Hot Chip tonight, can you sort it out? And I said, yeah, of course I can. And he said, I want to bring a friend of mine, she's a singer. So in comes Adele with Jack Pignati, who at the time, and I'll never forget, she was sat on this staircase with all these carrier bags around her, and she was like sat there like this, hunched. And I said, you all right? And she went, yeah, I'm waiting for him, about Jack. And she was just comical, and then we went upstairs. I was really, you know, obviously I had Hot Chip on, so I was watching all the show. And she came over to me and was really making me laugh. And then I sort of said to her, I hear you're a singer. And she was like, yeah. And she said, do you want a CD? I said, yes, please. And she tapped this guy who was literally next to me, and she was like, oi, you, can I have that CD back? I need to give it to her. Honestly, I've still got the CD. That's exactly what she did. And at that point, I took the CD home, and obviously you get given CDs of young bands all the time. But there was something about her, always was something about her. She was 17 years old then. And I went home, and I remember the next day, that's how long ago it was, I had one of them little JVC CD players. And I remember doing my housework, and I pressed the button, put the CD in, and I was like doing mopping or hoovering or whatever it was. I've got a really bad OCD. And on came Daydreamer, followed by Hometown. And I just remember sitting down and going, fuck, this is insane. And then I called my brother. And then that's when I said to him, that artist, and he said, yeah, I know, I'm having meetings with her. I was like, honestly, like, it's blown me away. Like, she's been writing these songs like this, it's just unbelievable. And then fast forwarded, and I've probably gone on too long on this story, but then fast forward to...
Great story.
He ends up obviously managing Adele, and then says to Adele, you need to get an agent, because that's like the next move for you. It's like, we need to get you out and playing live and touring and stuff. And she said, I've already got an agent, I know exactly who it is. It's a girl called Lucy Dickins. And he went, that's my sister. And that is the God's honest truth. That is exactly how it happened. So
you can't really fight over who found her first then?
Huh?
You can't fight over who actually found her first?
I know, it's kind of, it was kind of the same time, but yeah, I mean, she stayed, yeah, it was like the three of us when she was very young all the time. She spent a lot of time, and obviously she was tied into the Jamie T's, the Laura Martin, you know, that whole scene that I was obviously involved with. So she, it all sort of was like one little happy family. I look back in at like photos and stuff that come up, and in looking back at South by Southwest actually, and there's pictures of like me there with Adele, with Jamie T, with Jack Pignati. It's really cute. Like I look back and think, God, we were so fucking young. So young.
When we were talking the other day, you were saying that you love to be able to connect your artists even now. And obviously even that was sort of a common theme from right at the start. Laura Marling, who you represented, had a band who turned out to be members of Mumford Sons.
Marcus, yeah.
Obviously Adele came to the gig with Jack, to the Hot Chip gig, so it's obviously been...
I still do it now. I still do it, yeah. I mean, Laura Marling was playing, Marcus was the drummer, and
they were all teenagers at the time.
Oh my God, Laura was 16 when I signed her. I mean, she's... what a God-given talent she is. Yeah. But she, Marcus was her drummer, and I remember her manager at the time, was a dear friend of mine, Adam Tudhope, saying to me, we used to do these like hoedowns after Laura's show where everyone used to just get up. It was really, really fun at that time. And Adam said to me, you've got to hear this guy's voice. And it was Marcus, and he sort of came on with the guitar and was singing, and I was like, whoa. So it sort of started with that, and then they were obviously part of, they had like a little group, like little sort of group of them all that were hanging out together, and then they formed Mumford Sons, so that's how that sort of started.
And let's talk about Mumford for a sec, because they, we talk a lot about you thinking outside the box. They have been innovators from the start.
It's incredible. I was on a phone call with the boys yesterday, I was on a Zoom with them. I've lost all my days ever since this jet lag's killer. But I was on the phone with the boys and I was like, I think we need to just stop and pause for a minute and actually look at what you have done. Like, from the Gentleman on the Road idea, which was, you know, that was the guys going out and touring and going, what's really important to us and what's really important to, like, what's important to the fans? Like, how do we make this a nice experience? And that's really how the idea of Gentleman on the Road was developed, was just from the guys taking bits and pieces of what they loved when they were going to festivals and what they saw, which they thought was important. They're all about the fans.
Can you, for anyone who doesn't know what Gentleman on the Road is, can you give a bit of background on that?
So it's basically, we used to do Gentleman on the Road takeovers, and what we would do was go into a town, and it would normally be a town where there wasn't much sort of going on, and we would just basically get every part of the town involved. So it was a community thing of bringing people and fans and music together. So it would be like from them curating the lineup into, you know, going into part of the town, and, you know, we did in every market was a different market. So like in Ireland, we would go in to do little pubs and just go and do like little sessions, and then we'd go, it was just like basically a way of involving a town into every vision of the artist. And we would just go in and take...
We went to Dungog, New South Wales.
We did go to Dungog, we did. And that was and it was amazing, because everyone was like, where the fuck is Dungog? Like, what is that? Like, but it was a huge success. But this is what I was saying to the boys. I was like, if you think about the things that you did, they were pioneers of that. You know, there's now a music scene coming through. They were the pioneer of that sound. And they were the
and even the Gentleman on the Road concept, I hear it all the time in strategy.
That came into my Adele Munich residency.
Yep.
There was stuff I'd learned from doing those stuff with the boys that I knew about when I was going into that. So that, yeah.
But people still reference that, you know, conversations. They say, we want to do a Gentleman of the Road type thing, which basically means let's find a little park in a town no one knows of and put up a show.
Well, it's just about doing things for the fans, isn't it? It's like, that's the people who stay with you from start to end. So it's like, how do you keep that going?
We were just talking about this before. You are so focused on the fans and the fan experience, and we'll talk about it more a bit later, but how are you so authentically focused on the experience when you probably never went through the front door of a venue?
Never went through I didn't go for a front door event until I was about 18 years old, and then I complained about it. I don't know why, but I think I've always been about the fans. I mean, even when I did the Adele residency, the first thing I got when I got there was I said to them, and for those who don't know, we built a stadium and a world around it and toured it for, we didn't tour it, we stayed in one place, but we built a bespoke stadium and a world around her, and it was, everyone came to that show. So that's when I'm referring to an Adele residency in Munich, so everyone knows. But when I got to the site about a week before the opening, and obviously I'd done the other site visits, the first thing I'd said to everyone was, and they were like, let me show you the VIP. I said, I don't want to see the VIP. I'm a fan, I'm coming off a train, this is my journey. What's the first thing I see as I walk into this venue? And I've always been about that. I think it's, as long as you're giving back to your fans and they're going to stay loyal with you and be with you forever, it's really, really important. And right now, there's so much, I'm not going to go into that because it opens another window into something else, but you know, that's just the situation now with like the ticket pricing and everything else that's going on. It's just the fans that are getting affected by it. So it's like, how do you think outside the box of making the experience nice? And a great insight for me was when I was doing the residency in Munich, like Adele would come off stage at 10:15, 10:20, but the site was open till 12. So it actually became a really nice experience, because if you think about going to a show or going to a stadium show or whatever size show, the worst bit about it is you can never see the last song, which is always your favourite song, because you've got to rush out to get somewhere else. It's just a miserable experience. So for me, it was like, okay, how do you think about making this experience nicer? What else can
And what was on the site that was set up that kept people there?
So it was just really nice artisanal, and again, this was a very Gentleman on the Road thing. It was like artisanal F&B areas where they could go. There was a carousel, there was obviously, there was a karaoke stage, which was ridiculously successful. I think there were like 5,000 people on her tiny little
Could you only sing
stage.
Adele songs, or were there other?
You could sing anything you wanted, and I have one bit, I did get up there, it was hilarious, with her best friends and Rex Orange County, and we did Proud Mary. And I said it to Adele, and she was like, I can't believe you got Rex up there. But that was it. I think Maggie Rogers was on there doing a whole set. Like everyone, you could do whatever song you wanted, but there was a lot of young kids doing Adele covers, which was really, really cute.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere of having that after a show kept the spirit going, and the fans just had a great time. They weren't like all being ushered out and being pushed onto a tube to try and get out of there or whatever way to get out.
Yep.
So it was a good learning curve on what fans really like and don't mind. As long as the experience is nice for them, then that's great.
Yep. Another one of your artists who's been talking a lot about fans lately is James Blake. He was also a really important signing because you gave him a completely different approach to every other person pitching for his business.
Well, it was quite funny because at the time, and his manager at the time, who's no longer his manager now, said, he goes, there was all these agents reaching out to have a meeting with James Blake. He said, no, I had to call you. He said, and you didn't really know who he was. I was like, I did know who he was. I just wasn't like hounding the phone to you because I was really busy with other stuff. And so he was like, came in because James was a fan. James Blake was at that time was a really big Laura Marling fan and a lot of other artists that I was representing, and he wanted to come in and have a conversation with me. And when he came in, we were talking about all of his producing stuff and the CMYK days and everything that he was doing. And I said, I bet everyone else is coming to you and going, you should go and play a warehouse in East London. And he was like, yeah, they are. And I was like, you know what you should do? You should go and play this really old church and blow the fucking roof off it. Let's put a sound system in it. Let's go and do a residency in a church. And that was it, we did. And we did a really successful residency, and that was the start of me working with James Blake.
Amazing. So that's a good bit of background on some of the artist history at ITB. And then in 2019, you made a big move, left your dad's agency, went out to carve your own path at William Morris in the UK, immediately taken in there as partner of the business. Why did you feel the need to make that move?
Well, it's funny because everyone always says, oh, I'm sure you made that move because artists want all these other extra areas of their business. And I was like, good point, but that wasn't the reason I made the move. The reason I made the move was because I got to the point where I had to get out of the shadow of my dad. And I mean that in a truly respectful way, like it's a great shadow to be in, but there was a point where you get in your life where there's only so much you can take, where you get told you've signed something because of your brother, you've got that because of your dad, and it just got to a point, and then there were promoters that were ringing my dad up to offer Dell shows, and it wasn't coming to me, and I just got to the point where I was just like, do you know what, this is really pissing me off, it's actually making me angry. Like, why am I not getting credit for actually just being fucking good at what I do? And it was knocking me, so the best thing I could do was to make a ballsy move and to stand out on my own 2 feet, and I had to sink or swim. Like I always have imposter syndrome, like madly have imposter syndrome, and didn't know if I could do it or not, but I also knew that if I stayed where I was never going to push myself. So I've always been that person that when something makes me feel uncomfortable, I'll always lean towards it, because it's sink or swim, innit?
What did your dad say? How did you tell him?
My dad was great. He said, my dad's words were, as your father, I'm so proud of you. As your employee, I'm fucking pissed off.
Taking all his biggest clients out of the agency.
Yeah, but he was amazing. He was really, really, I mean, I don't know actually, looking back at that, the way he dealt with that, like, I don't know how I'd feel if my kid did that to me. But also the other part of it for me was people would look at me now and go, fuck, if she can do that, she's never going to, and now I'm not afraid to do anything, because that was the hardest decision I've ever had to do in my life, because more of the emotional side of it. It took me a year to make my mind up.
And you've been there 20 years when you left?
19 years.
Yeah.
And it took me a year to make that decision to go. But the decision really was that. It wasn't like, I feel the need to, I'm going to lose my clients if I can't offer them all these extra services. Obviously, that's great, but that wasn't my need. My need was, I need to stand on my own 2 feet, and actually it was to prove to myself if I could do it or not, and see if I could succeed. And it actually stopped people saying that she got this because of her brother or her dad, which I'd gone through for so many years. It was like, to a point, like record execs were saying it as well. I was just like, I've got to get out of this and do this myself. So, proved them all fucking wrong, didn't I?
Did all right. It was a good move. So, up to present day, you're now a signing machine. You've actually said on a number of occasions you're addicted to signing. Can you tell us about that?
I don't like being irrelevant. I think that's what I mean with that. So, like, I'm I mean, again, this comes into my positive. I say I'm really blessed, but obviously people say to me, you can't be that, because I'm like, oh, I was really lucky with that. But obviously you can't keep being lucky and lucky. So I don't know, I think for me, my roster has always been very much like I want the best of every genre. So like when I signed Adele, I didn't want 15 other Adeles. Like I just want her. When I had Laura Marling, I didn't want 15 other songwriters sound like Laura. So that was why like when I was in the singer, like most of my artists are all very, very tied in the fact they're all storytellers and they're all songwriters. Like that's exactly, so there's some continuity between the artists that I represent. But I think because the artists that I represent are real true artists, and I think if I'm not able to keep my eye on the ball of like what's new and upcoming and groundbreaking in music, I'll become irrelevant to them. So I love the fact, for example, James Blake said, we were talking and I talked about a South African band called The Joy that I work with. And when I brought it up to James, James was like, you work with The Joy? And I was like, yeah, I've worked with them for 2 years because I love them. So I've connected them and now they've done some collaborations together. So it keeps me, so when I say I'm addicted to signing, it's like I'm more like worried about becoming one of them sort of executives who sit there and if someone mentions a new band and they go, oh, yeah. It's like, I like to keep my ear to the ground, keep myself culturally relevant and keep myself in the mix of it.
So the process for signing now, are you as prepared as you were in that first hot chip meeting?
I'm never that prepared, really. I mean, look at me, you've seen what I'm like. I mean, I'm never ever that prepared. I don't think, I can't cookie cutter. I can't do this whole big signing pitch on an artist. Every one of my pitches is different to the artist that I'm meeting, and there isn't a pitch. I sit with an artist, I understand the artist, and then I work out what their avenue may or may not be. I like to talk about their visions and work into it that way. I can't sort of...
So how do you balance the importance of understanding who they are, what their desires are for their career, their work ethic, versus your feelings about their music?
Sorry, say that again?
When you decide who you're signing,
yeah.
How much is it about who they are and what their ambitions are versus how you feel about their art?
I think it all comes into it. I think how I feel about their music is the reason why I'm having the meeting in the first place. But I think it's their art. Like, I like to hear how they perceive it and what they want to do and go from there, really.
Has your brutal honesty ever backfired in those meetings?
I think they find it refreshing, but that's what they tell me. That might be different. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I mean, there are times where... the thing is, I think my brutal honesty is this, right? What I'll say to people is this. I'm going to give you as much information for you to make the decision that you want to make, right? And then that's down to you. But I'm going to be brutally honest with saying if you go down this route, or you go down this route, or this could happen or that can happen. I'm just going to inform you the best way I can. If you ask, they always know I'm opinionated. Like on a call the other day, one of my artists said, they call me LD, and one of my artists said, LD, I can tell you've got loads of questions. And I said, why do you all think I'm so opinionated? And they were like, because you are, but that's why we love you. So my thing is more like I'll just give them as much information as I can and tell them where I think it would go.
Yeah. Anyone you're super excited about having just signed?
If I didn't say live right now, Benji's going to have me neck. So I think live's a really exciting one. I've obviously just started working with Billie Eilish and Phineas, Casey Musgraves, and then I'm excited about Sims coming back with a new record, Cleo Soul, Renee Rapp. I'm excited about Teddy Swims, Benson Boone. I mean, there's a load of them. I think it's an exciting time again now.
Yeah, you got
for a while I was a
roster.
Yeah, it's very busy, but these are all artists that I've had for, especially, Teddy Swims we've had for years. It's like that wasn't just a lot of these artists have been just going for a long time and now just having their moments, which is nice to see, as you've obviously seen with other artists that are not mine, which I won't mention.
They don't need a platform today.
They don't need the help.
You are obviously known for your close rapport with your artists. How do you keep boundaries, professional, personal boundaries?
I'm shit with boundaries. I have a therapist, and he says every time, I'm so LA now, do you hear that? I've got a therapist. And he tells me all the time about setting boundaries. I can't set a fucking boundary. I can't even, I've like got, I mean, I really do talk a lot, as you've all noticed, but honestly, I can't, I'll just say what I think, so it probably does piss them off sometimes. But I think at least they've got someone that's brutally honest in their lives, because most artists just like surround themselves by yes people, don't they?
Well, yeah, they don't have to second guess what you're telling them, which must be refreshing.
Yeah.
You have said you get bored very easily.
Oh my God, I've got really bad ADHD, but I've got medication now, so I'm all right. That's why I'm so focused today. Normally you'd ask me a question, my head would be in 15 other places.
No, you're doing very well.
Thanks those meds yesterday, babe. Someone gave me some meds yesterday, I'm not going to name you, but I run out of my meds, and honestly, my head would have been all over the shop today, but I'm all right today, I'm really focused. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely.
Honestly, I can do 15 things at once. It's unbelievable. Why I didn't take medication all those years ago? I thought it was my superpower having ADHD. It was terrible. Now I'm like, I can do 15 things at once.
Unstoppable now.
Honestly.
You were doing all of that before the medication, that's impressive. But the generic touring aversion. So I get these calls all the time as well. We want to play the venue no one plays. We want to find a shed and a warehouse and a thing, and then everyone's really inspired, and then you run the budgets and they go...
Yeah, not every artist can do that, right? It's like, you know, there's a million, you know, listen, Adele's a unicorn. That was a one-off career-defining moment for me, right? I was blessed to be able to do that, and it was phenomenal. Not everyone is going to be able to go and do that, right? The Salt show that I did in London at the Drum Sheds, you know, absolutely does not make financial sense whatsoever, but you have to look at things like, so everything's taken in different contexts, right? So for something like, if you take like a Salt show, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but look at it as a short-term thing.
Can you tell the audience a bit about Salt?
So Salt's a, do people even know who Salt are? I mean, I don't even know who my audience is because I can't see shit, but so Salt is a producer, phenomenal producer, and worked on the likes of, you know, Little Sims, Michael Kiwanuka, Cleo Soul, and he's got lots of records out at the moment. And he decided, because he's an absolute mad creative, that he wanted to create a show that was going to change the face of the British culture. So it involved like fashion meets dance meets, I mean, there was a 60-piece orchestra, 40-piece dance, 40-piece choir, orchestra, there was a whole dance collective. It was like everything. It was just
like the most
Willy
Wonka's chocolate factory.
It was phenomenal. People were like, what is this? But it was everything, right? So he wanted to do that, and yes, it did. Like, it did change the face of everything, but there's no way that every artist is going to be able to go out and do that, because there's just not, financially doesn't make sense. But I guess with something like him, what it did was, if you can invest in the short term of it, which was doing that show, was what are the other, what's the ripple effect of what can happen to that? And if he really wanted to, he had a fashion label out of that. He could be a creative director for any design agency that he wanted to be. There was a million ramifications that he could have just gone off and done what he wanted to do. Then there can be like, this is the show in its entirety, which is immersive and isn't way to tour, but you can take pieces of it, right? So you have to look at something short term to invest in for the long term gain. So that was a really mind blowing thing to work on, though. Like, it was. So
that was 3,000 people ish.
There was less than that, but it was. I mean, it was a whole. it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to look it up online. You're walking through.
You walked through a fridge. And then you walked into a tunnel, and it was like in this Zen garden. I mean, it was honestly the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing, and the music was incredible as well. But it's like, artists come in to see that. If they go to you as an agent, oh, I want to do that show, like, don't forget it. Like, you just can't. It's not a business model whatsoever. That was just a one-off. And when there's like artists that come to you and they go, I don't want to do I don't want to do a normal tour. I want to do something that's slightly different. I guess you just have to look at it in the size of the artist, right? You don't have to go and spend a fucking load of money. You don't have to be, you know, I've done stuff with artists since they were really small in their career to when they were really big. And it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to go and throw a load of money at it. It's just thinking of a way outside of the general route that you would normally go down. So it might be the way you reconfigure the room, right? It might be that I don't want a stage, I want my artists up close to me. It might be you want something to do with a way that you can interact with your artists, how you sell them the tickets. It's just like there's loads of other ways that you can be creative that doesn't just necessarily mean you've got like the Salt and the Adele thing on one, well, you can't put Salt and Adele in the same room, but like you've got those mad, like expensive infrastructure things, or you've got ways of just like, how in the world that's really, really busy right now do I make someone want to buy a ticket for me and not for someone else when they've only got so much money? So that's how I try. You can still think outside the box of. It doesn't have to involve like throwing mud at it. Obviously that helps.
So let's come back to the Adele Munich residency. So this was, you went into an industrial estate, built a stadium for 80,000 people?
It was 80, it was about 74 roughly by the time we put production.
Just to do 10 shows?
We did 10 shows, yeah.
And it's now back to an industrial estate, nothing.
It really is the shithole. Like I went there 6 weeks before it was going up, and I'm not joking. Talk about the swan effect. I thought at one point I thought I was going to have the Fire Fest. It was it was so nerve-wracking, and I kept going, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. And then I was like, you fucking sure that that's going to get built in time? And then the actual stadium going up was the easy part.
Because you wanted to make every element of it feel like high class.
Have you seen what Adele does? That brand is so fucking massive. It's perfection. There's no, you can't even have something that's nearly all right. It has to be. So
the bars, the toilets, everything.
Oh mate, the worst thing they ever did was give me a golf cart with my name on it, because every single day, I loved it. It was really fun. But every morning I'd get on it and I'd do like little patrols, and then I looked through my camera roll the other day, and I've just got pictures of like litter, a bit hanging off of a toilet thing, and I used to just be going around on this golf cart like that and sending it to them going, fix this, pick up that litter, put more flowers in. Like I was like, there needs to be flowers, the site needs to be softened, there needs to be gravel. Like we were just on them every single day until it opened up, and then it was phenomenal. So the hard work paid off, and it was like literally, I mean, toilet duty was, there's not a thing I couldn't tell you about a portable toilet. I know everything
about
resume.
Them.
Which are the best ones. I was like, why are the toilets not uniformed? Like that's the detail you go into when you're doing a brand like her. Like everything has to be, like everything's really classy and thought out. She has a phenomenal team around her though, you know. Her production team and all the team that she had around her were just hands down the most phenomenal people. And I see what they've done, it's unbelievable.
So going from an independent agency into a major multinational corporate business, is there enough room for you to still be this creative and think independently? And
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't matter where you plonked me. I've never changed. I've been like this. I mean, people who I can't see who's in the room because I can't call anyone out, but people that have known me since the beginning of my career will tell you that I'm no different now to what I was then. It wouldn't matter where you put me, whatever. I'm never going to be corporate. I've always said that to him. I was like, I'm the least corporate person you'll meet, but you're never going to change me now. I'm stuck in my ways.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you are an agent. You're defined by the artists that you represent and the tours that you've done, but you're also the global head of contemporary music and touring at one of the biggest agencies.
God, they do love a title in America, don't they?
Love a title.
Fucking hell. It's such a long title.
So how do you balance, you and I have talked about this a little bit, mine with a much smaller business, but how do you balance the agent role and being a leader of the business? You've obviously got to split yourself into quite a lot.
Do you know what, it's always, that's like the question when people go to me, how do you balance being an agent and a mum? And my answer is always, well, when I'm a good mum, I'm really not that great at being an agent. And when I'm a good agent, I'm pretty shit at being a mum. And it's kind of the same way in that. Like, I'm never going to not be an agent, right? Whatever my long title means, I love being an agent. That's what I do. And you have great teams of people around you supporting you, and you have to build, the whole part of me, you know, is bringing through the next people who are the next leaders. And so this is the time where you have to rely on good teams of people, and I'm blessed in that way. And obviously with a company that's that big, you can choose and build your teams out, whereas if I was just there on my own, it would be really difficult. But you know, 1 minute I'll be doing a whole load of tour routings, and the next minute I'll be sorting out a performance evaluation or someone's deal renewal, or like talking about the training systems, or talking about who's the next future stars and how we're going to help them. So you just do this all the time. So,
Are there any things that you kind of are led by and think about a lot in trying to raise the next generation of agents to
think outside the box. Stop being so fucking generic and robotic, because it's so boring. And you're just going to fall into the same way as everyone else. Don't ever be afraid. No idea is a bad idea, just throw it out there.
Yeah. So in the current climate, the industry's obviously changed in the 20 odd years you've been doing it. How do you think about building new talent now in this climate, on TikTok, on higher costs of touring, all of those challenges? What's your strategy to break an artist?
It's hard now, I think. You know, back in the day, you would need that, like, one big TV show, one big press thing, one big, like, whatever. Now, with the whole rollout is massively important. And I think more than ever with an agent now, it's like being involved as part of that process with the team and working with the labels and what is the, you know, how do you make it the rollout? You know, like, how do you speak directly to your fans? How do you make your ticket stand out to be the one that people want to go and buy? And it's just been interesting. And I think with me, it's like, I say no a lot, right? It's like, you don't need to, just because you're showing that you're really big in one territory doesn't mean you just need to go into that territory, because whatever's there is going to still be there if you get it right. So it's like, it's like just really looking at, and also, I guess now, everything's global, right? Everything you look at is in a global way. So it's like having some sort of strategy and plan, and you can't just have one rule for one again. It's like every artist is going to be different. So my thing's always is like saying no and making sure you're being put in. Optics are everything on your first look. You get one big look out on a new record. So what are the optics of that? Where do you really need to play? How do you market that? How do you work with your teams? How do you get your marketing departments aligned? How do you get the music aligned? What's making that a more interesting way? How do I get that to the fans? You know, so there's a number of things now that just have to come in. And also I go into the minutiae. Like I'm one of those people that want the facts and the look it up against other people, look at this. And also I have a team in my London office. Obviously I'm based in LA now. But the team in my London office, I drive them nuts, because I'll have one idea and I'll go to sleep, and the next morning I'll wake up and I'll be like, I've changed my mind. I don't think that's a good idea anymore. I think we should do this. So I probably overthink on things.
Do you think there's a lot of things we could talk about, but changing festival market has been a hot topic as well. Do you think, I've noticed, I hadn't really thought about this until the last few weeks, but I think with festivals falling over, at least in Australia.
However, can we just talk about the success
Laneway
of
Festival?
Laneway?
Congratulations.
Come on, guys. Well done, Danny and team.
Yes, amazing.
I mean, that's great for this, and also so great for Australia, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's just going to show you.
Yeah.
Well curated, brilliant lineup.
Yep. People still want to buy
People
the
still want to
tickets.
go. And it's a great lineup. It's undeniable. I mean, I'm not blowing you. He's probably not even in the room because I can't see. But if you are, Danny, I'll say it's nothing I'm not saying I wouldn't say to you. But he's always been phenomenal at curating a lineup. And I think if you can keep. I mean, music is like, as long as you get that right, I think it will always prevail.
Yeah. One of the things that I have noticed with some festivals falling over that we're seeing in Australia, though, is that it's making it harder, particularly in this market, for people to anchor their strategies around.
Yeah, it's very
So what we're
difficult.
seeing is this flurry of tour announcements that we're getting calls from agents now in October saying, shit, we've still got to get down there before the end of the summer. So they may have 18 months ago plotted around Splendour or Spilt Milk or Laneway or Falls or whatever it is, and had their strategy really laid out.
Yeah.
And now without that, it just means there's so many options and different routes, it becomes hard to really pin down.
It's really hard to pin down, and I think for financial reasons, you know, the cost of touring's gone through the roof, freighting has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And you've got to start now find, if you haven't got an anchor to go into something, it's like, it's really difficult. But I mean, I think that's generally the festivals, it's everywhere. It's not just in Australia. I think that's become a problem everywhere. So I think, you know, again, you have to try and maximise times in each market. But you know, I did think that was encouraging to see. I think that Laneway doing what that did yesterday was a good indication.
An amazing story for Laneway, that the fastest sellout, I believe,
After
however,
20 years.
15,
20 years,
in.
I asked him that last night. 20 years.
Yeah, for all of us trying to hang tight on developing festivals, it's a long road.
I know. It's everything, but that's the same with anything, isn't it? No one gets anything overnight. It's called, you know, everyone has to go put the effort in long term.
Yeah. So if you could predict or encourage what change you would want to see in the industry in the future, anything that...
Oh God, there's loads.
You have
well, I mean, for a start off, I think without... How long we got?
7 minutes to...
I'm not going to spend... Oh God, how did you know that? Is there it's a clock. Just noticed. That'll save me then. Shall I take 7 minutes to answer this? No, I mean, obviously ticket pricing, artist costs. I mean, you could go on and on and on with that.
I mean, I think that's something that people... There's a lot of opinions and complaints about the rising ticket prices, but people
costs.
haven't really connected the dots. Yeah, if everyone who is currently trying to book a hotel room or a plane ticket and has seen it's a lot more expensive than it used to be, we're trying to book 60 of them. And those costs are going up, and this isn't just a matter of artists and promoters gouging for money. This is a reality of the costs of getting out to Australia for the artists to get here, and then when they're here, the costs of being on the road.
I had a really interesting conversation with someone the other day, actually, about... He's come up with a theory, and I don't want to talk about his theory on a stage today because I might get in trouble for it, but he came up with a theory about a way in which everyone can funnel in to bring down artist costs, which effectively will bring down ticket pricing, which is... it was a really interesting concept, actually, that I need to look more into, but I think his ideas were right, you know, and a lot of the costs, you know, come down to travel, hotels and freight, right? So it's like, how do you sort of bring those down? And, you know,
residencies make everyone travel to you.
But residencies aren't cheap either. I think people, you know, you've really got to make sure you're an artist. Like, not every artist can go necessarily just go and play in one place and just stay there, right? That's not sustainable either. So it's, you know, there's ideas of... I mean, packaging's always the great one now, isn't it? Like, you start to get more artists going, and that's obviously where the stadiums have got to now. It's like everyone's doing these massive lineups on the stadium, and everyone wants to play a stadium.
Yeah, I guess it's about value for money if you're going to charge those prices.
I think when people complain, I mean, you know, going back to the salt thing, when we put the ticket price up, I think at the time it was £99 because there was no way we could have done it, like, and even that. And I remember everyone complaining about the ticket price, and I said to the artist, I was like, just be quiet for a minute because no one knows what they're getting. And the same thing happens to me with Adele, right? It's like people don't know what to do. If people are going into an unknown, they don't know what they're getting their ticket price for. It's different if you're going to a venue and you just hike a ticket price up because people know what they're getting. But with something like this sort of, if you go into residency or if you do something creative, sometimes you have to hold your nerve a little bit because actually after everyone went to see the salt thing, everyone online was like, oh my God, that was the best £99 I've ever spent. I'll spend it again and again and again. So it goes back to what you're giving the fan, how they feel that they're getting value for their money, rather than just having the piss taken out of them.
Yeah. How much time do we have left? Got one more question for you. We might finish a couple of minutes early. For someone as busy as you are, why do you never take the easy option?
I know, I asked myself that. Someone said to me the other day about something about going into this, and we're not going to get into how well it's about going into a tour deal, and I said, you know what, it'd be so fucking easy if I would just go, yeah, let's go and do that, because I don't have to do anything. I could just sit there and go happily take that. But I don't know. I always... at the end of the day, I work
every detail.
God, sorry. I work for the artist, don't I, right? So for me, it's like, it's never the easy option, but I'm willing to do the work for it. But I've never taken it. I mean, actually in life, I've never taken the easy option. I really wished I had.
You'd be so bored.
I don't think I've ever taken the easy option in anything. I get too like personally involved into everything, and maybe because I'm so close to my artist, I take it even more to heart than most people would. But I will say, it's like, you know, people just go, wow, you know, the role of an agent and da-da-da. And I was like, actually, I've never felt more empowered to be an agent than what I do right now. Because I think if you're good at what you do, the value you can bring to your artist is unbelievable. I think if...
I mean, who was it who wants you on their creative advisory board?
Oh, I've got a few of those at the moment.
Yeah.
Just haven't got... That's something else.
So your artists obviously aren't coming to you just for routings and budgets?
No, they ask me about everything, but I mean, my artists will even send me their music and ask my opinion on it. They seem to think I've got really good ears, but I think it's just because I'm opinionated. But yeah, I wish I had taken the easy option at sometimes, but then I wouldn't be where I am now, I guess, if I'd have done that.
Yeah, that's probably a nice place to wrap up. What have we got? 3 minutes?
We haven't got a Q&A, have we?
No Q&As. Too many hot topics.
Yeah. You know that someone was going to bring up Four Corners. Someone's dying out there to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah, we have no comments.
Let's get Chuggy up here.
Chuggy's in Brisbane at a Shepherd show, so we can't.
I missed him.
Yeah, can't get his opinions. Lucy, thank you. Thank you for flying all the way to Australia. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself and your experiences. Thank you for your amazing contribution to the industry, and thank you for inspiring, hopefully, everyone in the audience today to think differently, to be a fan first, and to never take the easy option.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.